Okay. I wasn't expecting to have to do this so soon. Fuck. Okay, so Deltarune Chapter 5 was just announced earlier today. It's releasing June 24th. I thought I'd have more time for my Chapter 5 predictions video, which I wanted to make. I don't have time. Now that it's literally 2 weeks away, I don't have time to really make a full dedicated video. I'm gonna cram them in here anyway, the major predictions, but I do want to talk about the trailer. Okay, so the trailer, very, very interesting for this chapter, right? Because let's think about what happens for a second, right? One of the first things in the trailer we see are these enemies that kind of look like Rudins, but they're more flowery or have garden flower themes to them, which is really interesting. It would kind of make sense though, because Asgore is Chris's father, and Chris seems to have a pretty deep connection to Card Castle. It seems like a place that maybe Chris and Azrael played in pretty often or something. I just think that's an interesting connection to do. We also get a really good trio of the bald guy, Trashy, and Newbert, who's gone Super Saiyan, which is good for him. And then we kind of get into the real shit of this chapter trailer. That being what looks like the white pen of hope that Gerson talks about in his fight with Susie in chapter 4. He says something about Susie carrying the white pen of hope, which I'd have to reread the dialogue because I don't remember off the top of my head. But the way I interpreted it when I read it was that he was speaking metaphorically, that Susie carried this power within her. It wasn't an actual weapon that she physically would be able to carry. But I am gonna be so honest, I don't fully believe this is the white pen of hope. I think this is a trap, because like I said, I interpreted it more metaphorically. So the fact that we're being presented with a physical weapon here feels really odd to me, because it's basically a MacGuffin at that point, right? It's like, yeah, our problems are just gonna be magically solved now that we have this magic white pen of hope, which it can't be the case because we still have 2 other chapters after this. I just assume that this is a trap that Susie and the rest of the group are going to be tricked into believing that this will help them fix the prophecy, or change the prophecy, I should say. And Susie's going to believe it because Gerson told her that she will be able to carry the white pen of hope or something like that. She's like, this must be what the old man was talking about. But it's going to end up being a trap, I think. And it's also the fact that Toby in the newsletter says that he doesn't like revealing important things from the story of the games in the trailers, which kind of goes against trailer etiquette. But that tips me off a bit as well, because putting the white pen of hope makes it seem like it's not important. Like, if you're putting it in this trailer, it can't be that important, right? Or at least it's important for different reasons. And that this is actually a trap, it's not a real or weapon that the heroes, or Susie in particular, can use. Hi, Editing Starry here. While I was editing this video, I realized I completely forgot to talk about this attack pattern from the trailer, so let's quickly do that. This attack pattern is one that actually comes from Undertale, specifically when you're fighting the light blue patient soul in the Omega Flowey fight. Now, this is something that everyone has been pointing out, so I'm not saying anything new, but everyone has been theorizing that since Asgore is holding the flowers from Toriel's wedding bouquet in his flower shop, that we're going to fight darkener versions of these flowers, and that potentially these flowers are going to be representative of the human souls from Undertale, because every single one of these flowers is colored after one of the human souls from Undertale. And those humans were characters that we never see, we never learn much about them. So I think this is something that Toby wants to explore in Deltarune. It's kind of Toby's way of going back and re-exploring elements that he didn't get to do in Undertale, like the Gerson fight, stuff like that. So I think that's what we're gonna see there. I just wanted to insert that really quickly here. Anyway, on to the rest of the video. And then of course at the end we get that shot of the 3 of them looking out onto the literal field of pink and gold, as was foreshadowed in chapter 4. So one of my predictions, and this was basically everyone's prediction as well, it was all but confirmed, but it seems obvious that we're going to Asgore's flower shop in chapter 5. That's where the Dark World is going to be. So I want to talk about the newsletter, because Toby kind of says in the newsletter that chapter 5 is kind of a return to form, where this is meant to be one last fun adventure, where the characters, we're still gonna be smiling, we're still gonna be having fun, as long as they can. And there's an ellipses before moving on, like, yeah. Based on the way that Toby phrases it in the newsletter, and also what I think the characters are like, this chapter, I think we're gonna just be trying to avoid what the impending doom of the situation is. Because at the end of chapter 4, things got pretty serious, right? Susie saw the last prophecy, which, of course, we don't know what it says, but something probably tragic and earth-shattering or something is gonna happen at the end. It's something so bad that Valsay feels the need to apologize for it, which I do have a prediction for. I'll get to it in a little bit. I think that the characters, and Susie in particular, as we find out in chapter 3, this is the first time she's made connections, that she's made real friends in her life. In this case, being with Chris and Rousey. So I think she's afraid to lose that. She doesn't want to lose that. She's gonna just want to avoid thinking about whatever dire circumstances or whatever is coming for them. She doesn't want to think about the last prophecy. She's gonna just want to keep putting it off and have one last fun adventure. But I think Rousey is gonna want to talk about it. He's gonna want to talk about the last prophecy. He's like, hey, this is important. We should talk about this and deal with it. And also we should figure out if there's a way we can avoid it. But Susie's not gonna want to think about it at all. In chapter 4, at least 2 different times, in Gerson's fight, she says, I think it'd be better if the story never ended. And in chapter 4, after Susie sees the last prophecy panel and you meet up with her to seal the dark fountain, she says that her dream is that every day would be exactly the same as the last. Having fun adventures with Chris and Rousey forever. That's what she wants. She doesn't want it to ever end. So she's gonna want to put it off and not think about it at all. I don't think she's gonna be in denial. That doesn't seem to be in her character. But she's gonna be basically bargaining for more time, more fun adventures. And Rousey, I think, will one kind of push to talk about the real impending doom that's coming, but also I think he's gonna also want to just placate Susie's feelings, because she is in chapter 3 where Rousey says something along the lines of, if you're having fun, Susie, then we can keep playing games as long as you want. Let me quickly talk about a few predictions. I really only had 2 major ones. I wanted to talk about Susie and not being a girl in a prophecy whole thing, which seems to have been debunked, but just to recap that theory real quick. So in one of the prophecy panels in chapter 4, the second hero panel, it talks about the second hero, the girl with hope crossed in her heart. And some people looked at that panel and were like, this doesn't look like Susie. Maybe Susie isn't the real second hero. Maybe the real second hero is Noelle, because Noelle does seem to have an important place in the story of Deltarune, but we're not quite sure what her importance is just yet. Her importance seems to more be present in the weird route. So I don't know. I think that's just where her importance is being placed more so. We'll have to see about that. But I didn't believe this theory, and now it does seem to be basically debunked by, I think, the chapter 4 vinyl cover art, I'm pretty sure it was. Like I said, I didn't believe this theory really. I think when it first came out, I'm like, oh, okay, I can maybe see that, but the more time went on, the more I thought about it, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. So one major thing that people have pointed out that was like, oh, well, Susie's carrying a sword here and not her usual axe, so she can't be the hero because she carries an axe. Noelle can technically carry a sword, I believe, at some point. I don't think that fucking matters. I feel like Susie might just be able to carry Chris's sword for some reason at a point in the story. Who knows why? I also just don't believe, if she wasn't the hero of the prophecy, then she would be defying the prophecy, but I just don't think it's gonna be that easy to defy the prophecy. The prophecy is very specific, it seems. It calls out something very innocuous that Lancer says in chapter 1. It is that specific. So I don't think it would get a detail like Susie wrong, you know what I mean? So yeah, I think Susie truly is the hero. That's not really a prediction. That's just me saying stuff. My real prediction, and this goes not so much for chapter 5, but just in the future in general, for the last prophecy panel, I think we might get a look at what it actually says at the end of chapter 5, and it's going to leave on that cliffhanger, because I feel like chapter 5 is going to be mostly fun, but there's going to be the underlying tone of, we need to talk about the elephant in the room. Address me. until it eventually just like boils over, and then we're left on like a dramatic cliffhanger. Here's my prediction. I think that Susie or Chris, but presumably Susie, are going to have to die or sacrifice themselves in some way. The way that Rouse has acted towards Chris and Susie from really the beginning is like sympathetic. One line that has stood out to me on my recent replay of chapter 4 was in that one scene where you're walking with them, Chris's soul is lighting up the entire room and the night is just fucking attacking you all the time. When Rouse walks up to take any damage for Chris and Susie that he can, he says something along the lines of, Chris, Susie, as long as I can take any pain in your place, I will. So that makes me think that he feels guilty about something, because he's going out of his way to try and take any pain in their place as much as he possibly can, and not because he's a sacrificial goat. He feels guilty about the fact that one of them is going to have to die. It's like, if there's any pain that I could possibly take, then I will take it, because one of you is dying and I feel incredibly guilty about it. I think it's also why he thinks that his life and Darkner's lives don't matter. It's why he feels like he's not important. It's like, my life is not important because I have to just serve these two people. What I want doesn't matter, because they're gonna have to give up their real life for me and all these other people when we're not even real. We're just fucking objects or something similar of the ilk. So to me, it reads as guilt. I think it's gonna have to be Susie, and I don't really have a reason. I just think it is Susie. She's so important to the story, and I just think she's gonna have to sacrifice herself. And I don't have like evidence as to why it's Susie, really. It's just a gut feeling I have. But it could easily be Chris as well. That's my prediction. I did want to talk about one last thing really quickly, which is I just started replaying Undertale today, actually. And on the topic of fucking Field of Pink and Gold, and the one thing I noticed, I think people have noticed this before, so I'm not necessarily breaking new ground or anything, but in Undertale, you know how the characters' names will turn yellow when you can spare them. But as some people know, if you talk to the Frogget in one of the rooms in the ruins, he tells you that fact, like, hey, did you know that fucking you can spare them when their names are yellow? And he asks what you think about it. If you choose a few dialogue options, you're able to change the names from yellow to pink. Everyone throws out their yellow names and brings in the pink names, which I guess they used to have or something. And I don't think the lore is actually important for that. But the fact that the names can go anyway, from yellow to pink, like pink and yellow, the Field of Pink and Yellow, like Field of Pink and Gold. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, it's pervasive. Even in Undertale, which has almost nothing to do with the lore of Deltarune, really. I mean, obviously a few things. That just feels really important to me. I don't know what to do with that information. I don't know if it actually is important at all, but I just need to share that info because what the fuck. Anyways, that's it. So, thanks. Chapter 4 video will still come out sometime soon. I will record me playing Chapter 5, and then I'll do something with it. That'll be probably a video of itself later. Thanks for watching. Okay, bye.